Hello and welcome back to the Hardwood Hoops podcast. This is episode 41 and it is our Eastern Conference preview episode. I never introduced myself, which people get annoyed at. So I'm your host, Liam Horsley, and I'm joined by my co-host as always, Mr. Cavs, Ben Jones.
Hello there. Or maybe I should start, when you introduce me, maybe I should then introduce you. We should do a little back and forth. Might be fun, a little cute back and forth.
Might be fun. Keep things flowing in the relationship. Let's do it.
Yeah, spice it up. Everyone needs a little bit of role play here and there.
Correct. And more on that in our late at night episode next week. So plan for this episode is our Eastern Conference preview. We're going to go run through every position. We're going to go 1 through 10 in a bit more depth because 8, 9, 10 obviously are involved with the play-in tournament this year. 11 to 15 in both conferences we'll kind of skip through. Like we said, this is the Eastern Conference only one. West will come out later on in the week. And we'll just talk about each team and see how many we agree on and disagree on. So should we kick straight off then?
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I love doing these two conference previews, but I've literally just swapped one over as well in my Eastern one, so it's sort of playful.
I might actually write down this time yours as well, so we can tweet out end of the year, see how many we got right each. Cool. So let's go then. Number 1, we'll start off with. I have the Milwaukee Bucks still being the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Key additions for their team, which I'm going to kind of run through for each one as we go. Drew Holiday, DJ Augustine, and Mr. Crazy Eyes, Bobby Portis. The reasons for them being number 1 seed is Giannis. That's the reason I have written down.
It's one reason. It's just Giannis.
Yeah, it's just Giannis. Best player in the conference for me. Kind of will have another crazy MVP season. He won't get it, but he'll have a crazy sort of level again. I like Drew Holiday addition. I think in the regular season, their team will probably only be as good as it ever was. Coach Bud is very good in the regular season. We all know that. Always does well in those sort of games. Very deep roster at times. So I just think he's a very good regular season coach with the best regular season player. And probably the best addition in the East as well with Drew Holiday. So for me, I think they just about scraped the 1 seed. Maybe not as much dominance as normal, but I still think they're the 1 seed. So for me, I've gone with the Bucks still at 1 seed. Do you want to give us who you've gone finishing in first place in the East?
Nice, yeah. Like all you said, I forget really how good a regular season team they are and coach they've got, but they're not my number 1. I've gone with the Boston Celtics.
Nice.
I think the lack of roster changes is really going to benefit them, and they've added and bolstered out where their weaknesses are. Their weakness was a big man. They've signed Tristan Thompson, who, I am a Cavs fan, as we know, not just a bias. When Thompson is on form, he is an incredible defender and rebounder. And that's all he needs to do while he's in Boston. He's got no pressure on him whatsoever, apart from to do the things he is good at. So this could be a real game changer for the Celtics. As well as that, Daniel Tice had some real player development during the playoffs, I think, and has really stepped up.
Yeah, he did.
I think if they can maybe sign 1 or 2 to flesh out that middle, sort of your forwards and your guards, then that could definitely benefit them. They have signed Jeff Teague to sort of help try and take the ball handling responsibilities away from like Kemba and stuff when he needs to go to the bench. He's fine for those minutes. But yeah, for me, I think Boston, the way they've been playing lately, are going to take that 1 seed.
Nice. And as happens very often when we do lists, your one or my one often feeds into the next team. So the 2nd seed in the East, I have the Celtics. Like I said, a lot closer than it has been for me. I think they'll finish a couple of games behind the Bucks, but not many at all. I did have them in 3rd until this morning, and then I definitely came to my senses. So key additions for them, you've already touched on it, Tristan Thompson, Jeff Teague. They've also added Naismith, who's a good shooter in the draft, who's someone who I think will actually play minutes. The rest of their draft I don't think will actually play, but I think Naismith will get some minutes. The reasons I think they'll finish 2nd then, similar to you, not much roster turnover. So I think they've got that consistency and they've kind of got that roster that know how to play together, know the system, know the coach. And I've just written down as well. They've got elite wings in Brown and Tatum. And for me, I just think they could go up another level, even if it's just defensively or consistently shooting from the three or from the line or whatever it is. I think they've still got room to grow. So having two elite wings is a little bit like the Clippers, really, in terms of how important it can be on both ends of the floor. So I just like the fact their two best players are two wing players. And they've got great depth and great coaching, like you've already touched on. So I've gone with the Celtics in second, finishing a lot closer to the Bucks than previous years, but still just slightly behind with that Giannis factor for me.
Yeah. Well, let's keep this neat and tidy because in my 2 spot, I've got the Bucks.
Nice.
I don't need to reiterate anything you've said. You were spot on with absolutely everything. The reason they'll finish that high is because of Giannis. And they've added Holiday, which I'm hoping will be a really good addition. It'd be nice to see him play well on a good team because I really like him as a player, but I don't know what his full potential is because I'm not sure he's been able to get to that full potential for the past couple of seasons. So looking forward to that and seeing what this Bucks team can bring to the table in terms of another. Can they have is it just going to be another dominant preseason and then postseason they flop again? Who knows? So yeah, Bucks.
Yeah, it's an important year, isn't it, as well, with Giannis?
Yeah, definitely.
Free agency coming. He's got to sign his max extension before the 22nd, well, before the game starts, so 22nd of December. And if he doesn't, then he'll be a free agent next summer, where he can still sign the max extension with the Bucks, obviously, but he can then also talk to other teams. So it's a huge year for them. One quick question that I want a quick answer on. Will Drew Holiday start at the point guard, or will he play the two guard and Augustine start at the point guard? What are your thoughts?
They'll start him at the point, and they'll maybe experiment a little bit, I think. But I think that's
cool.
Where they want him, because a lot of teams they'll play against have got really, really talented point guards, and they'll want him to defend that point position.
Yeah, definitely. That is, well, that's probably his main thing, isn't it? He is known for that, being that defensive stopper of guards. A little bit of a Steph Curry stopper at times, to be fair. So
yeah.
Cool. Let's go on to our 3 seed then. This is the team I had at second, and then I just had to calm down a bit, which probably indicates who this is going to be. So in the 3rd seed, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Similar to the Bucks, the reason I wrote down is Kevin Durant. Rumors are he's back to himself. It's very hard. We haven't seen him play, so these are previews, so we haven't got much to go on. We can only go on reporting. And if Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant, then for me, there's no way there won't be a top 4 seed. And you'll see from the team that I've got in 4th that I just think the Nets have just got to score too many points and win too many close games in the 4th quarter with those 2 stars playing. Key additions wise, I put KD, even though he signed last summer because he hasn't played yet. Landry Shamet, and then I wrote down another key addition is the coaching staff. They've got a very good in-depth coaching staff now with D'Antoni being an assistant coach, Steve Nash trying to give a brand new offense really to the Nets. So for me, I just think that they're going to be an up-and-coming team. If KD goes down with an injury or minutes restrictions or Kyrie, then it's a very different season. But at the moment, everyone's fit and healthy. So I've gone with the Nets. What say you, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I knew you'd have the Nets up there somewhere. I'm not as high on the Nets as you. I personally really like their team, the way they're setting up, and I like their depth at the moment. If the rumours are true, their biggest mistake will be trading all their depth away for another star. But they haven't crossed that bridge, so we won't talk about it. In 3, I've got this season's finalist, the Miami Heat. I like their consistency, although they've lost Jay Crowder. I think Iguodala will play a bigger role. I think Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero will both be even better this season. Bam Adebayo is going to get better this season. Jimmy will do Jimmy things. They've got Dragic and Kendrick Nunn to sort of play around with at the point. I just like everything about this team. They're well coached. They're well run. They've got players that have bought into this system, and they're all fighting for each other. And I think that is going to show throughout the regular season. So my 3rd place team is the Miami Heat.
Nice. Cool. Well, let's go on to our 4th seed then. The last team that gets some sort of home court advantage come playoff time, if there is any fans. I have struggled with this one a little bit. This is the other one that I was kind of changing up till this morning. I have gone with the Philadelphia 76ers, so the Heat are not there for me yet. Key additions first. Obviously, Seth Curry, not Steph. Seth, as I said last podcast. Danny Green, your boy. Terence Ferguson, really good player. And in the draft, they added Tyrese Maxey and Isaiah Joe, 2 players that will definitely be in their 10, 11-man rotation. So for me, like I said, just name those 4 players. That improves that overall roster.
Sorry, you missed a key player there in the second position. They've added.
I missed? Oh yeah, sorry. I should actually know that they've added. Actually, that's quite bad. I didn't write it down. Dwight Howard will play some minutes. That's going to be my end of my comment there. They've added some shooting. They've lost Al Horford, which is an addition by subtraction. Seth Curry is one of the greatest shooters of all time in terms of spot ups, which is something they need. Danny Green is one of the most consistent 3-point shooters before the playoffs last year of all time. Terence Ferguson adds more length and defensive ability. Tyrese Maxey is probably the best defender in the drafts. Their defense is going to be scary. Isaiah Joe is a really good 3-point shooter. Their defense is going to be scary. And other reasons I've just written down on my list is they've got good coaching. I don't know if Doc's the right man to win a championship anymore with his offensive scheme. But overall, in terms of not making mistakes defensively and kind of having an actual system, which they didn't have sometimes last year, I think he'll give them that. But I put them as the 4th seed rather than any higher, just because I think it'll take time to integrate these new pieces and this new coach and stuff. So I just think that it might take a little bit more time with the huge amount of changes they've got. Whereas the Nets, at least Kyrie's played with these players before, and they've only added Shamet, who are just shooting. KD, obviously, is just KD. So for me, 76ers are in at the 4 seed. What about you?
I've got the Nets in at 4. Nice. I'm not quite as high on them as you, but
only one spot.
Fit and healthy, they're a dangerous squad. You can't deny that. Like I said, the depth that they show. I think when I talk about the depth, I mean they took basically their 3rd team to the playoffs. You know, the guys they've got as backup guards, especially, are fantastic. I think DeAndre Jordan's not quite done yet. I mean, last season, the game that I physically went to see, Jarrett Allen was getting absolutely killed, and so were the Nets. The Nets were being killed by Philadelphia until DeAndre Jordan went out there, and I think his experience and his knowledge, although he tends to be just that athletic guy, he's been around the league a long time and he's got some skills. I think he's going to be a great influence for Jarrett Allen. So I like Brooklyn in at the 4th spot for me.
Nice. Did they win that game that you went to, or did the 76ers pull out?
I went to overtime, and the 76ers did pull out the win, from my memory.
Nice. You're a bad mascot for the Nets then.
Bad omen. It was in Philly though, so
home win. Cool. Let's move on then to our next batch of teams. Then the teams that are not going to have home court vibes in the playoffs. So let's start with number 5. I've gone with the team you've already spoken about here, the Miami Heat. Key additions: Precious Achiuwa, Avery Bradley, Mo Harkless. 3 players that I think will be involved heavily in their rotation. They re-signed a lot of their players from last year as well, slightly inflated contracts, let's say. In terms of why they're a little bit lower than you, I put down that I think Crowder is a bigger loss than people will realise. I think they've got a lot of players that can guard guards and a lot of players that can guard bigs. And I think unless Precious Achiuwa kind of really gets in the top 7, 8, 9-man rotation early, they're going to struggle to guard 3s and 4s, especially when Bam's not on the floor. So I just think that Crowder's a little bit of a loss. I think Dragic's getting older and getting that injury doesn't help. I want to see him play to his normal level because me and you are both huge fans of Dragic. But I think at that age, with the injury he just had, it's just a bit of a worry whether he'll be able to kickstart straight away and how long it'll take him to get going. So I've kind of put that. I think the East is loaded again this year, just in terms of the top 6 to 7 teams are very, very similar. And I just got the Heat slightly finishing lower just due to that reason, even though I do think if those young players take a step up, they could actually go forward in the season. But I haven't seen that yet, so I'm just going to put them in here at 5. Let's go with your 5th seed then, mate.
This was 5th and 6th. This is where I the one that I've played around with up to just recording. And I'm still struggling with it. But I'm gonna go with the change I just made, and I'm gonna put the Hawks in the fifth
What?
seed. Yeah,
Wow, that is a shocking move.
I think they have been there. We said it the other day. I think they've been the absolute winner this off-season. The signings they've made have been incredible. They've really fleshed out their roster with some real talent. We're yet to see their best centre play in Clint Capella with them, really. Trey Young is an absolute shooting machine. Um, I do. I think they've really fleshed out their roster. I think it will take time for them to gel and click, but once they do, if they do, let's say, I think they've got massive potential this season. So my fifth seed is the Hawks.
When you started talking, then I wrote down 76ers for your fifth seed because I thought that's who you were going to say. So I've just crossed that out and put the Hawks with a shocked face next to it. So you haven't got the 76ers in the top 5 at all. Interesting. Well, I won't talk about the Hawks yet because they're later on in my list. So 6 then for me. I've gone with the Toronto Raptors, and this was difficult for me. I wanted to put them lower in the list, but I just think, well, me and you both said it before. We think they've got probably arguably the best coach currently, with Popovich getting a little bit older, and that does mean something to have that level of coaching staff, that level of consistency, the schemes they have. So that is a key factor for me. Key addition-wise, they've added Aaron Baines and Alex Len to replace Marc Gasol and Ibaka. I put them at 6, closer to 7 than they will be to 5, because they brought 2 players in to replace those players, but they're a lot worse. Aaron Baines is a very good player, but Serge Ibaka for me is a lot better. And Marc Gasol, even though he struggled towards the end of the year, he is kind of one of the better defensive centers of all time, really, in the NBA. So I just think that is a big loss, but they've still got good players. Fred VanVleet with that new deal. Lowry's still there. OG Anunoby should take another step forward. So I think they'll cling on to the 6th. But I was very close to putting them in 7, but I've left them there at 6 for me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bainesy. I think that's a great signing for them. But my 6th seed, you can rewrite down Philadelphia. that was
I thought that. I was going to be shocked if you had them any lower.
Nah, I'm just so hesitant with Philly. Like last season, at this point in the season, I said exactly what you just said. Like looking at them, they're defensively going to be a beast. They've got like good depth, good roster.
Yeah,
their roster this season, it does look better. They've added the shooting, which they need around Ben Simmons, which for some reason they didn't do last season. They just went for size and length and defensive, what they thought was going to be a really good defensive unit. And this time around, I think it's a bit more balanced. It's just, can they bring out the best of Embiid night in, night out? And if they can, they could probably finish higher than what I've got them. Well, definitely finish higher than what I've got them. But can they nail him down? That's the question.
Well, injuries are a big factor as well, aren't they, with that team? Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid never started a postseason healthy together. No. And if they both miss a lot of time, then they're definitely going to be 6, 7, 8, aren't they? They're not going to be anywhere near a 3, 4, 5 seed if they've got those 2 players missing a lot of time, you'd think.
Yeah, no chance. And I mean, they did quite well last season, considering the amount of injuries they were getting throughout the season.
In terms of 6th seed last year.
Yeah. So yeah,
Do you anticipate that middle section to be as tight as last year? So, for example, 6 to 4 last year was separated by a game and a half. So with the Hawks, for you, you've got Nets, Hawks, 76ers. Do you think that middle pack with the Heat as well will be as close to last year, or do you see there being like a big gap between any of those teams?
I think 1, 2, 3, 4 will be a couple of there'll be a nice gap there between then. 5 to 8, I think, will be even deeper. 5 to maybe 9 or 10 could really be tight again this season.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Cool. So that's our top 6 then. Let's move on to the 7th seed. This is just where I really struggled. I've gone with the Pacers still, and they're a team I don't really want to go with in the 7th seed. But when I was doing my analysis on all the rosters and stuff, I just thought that it was hard to not put them there. Similar to the Celtics, they are, roster-wise, they are very consistent. They haven't lost many big players. They haven't added crazy amounts of players either. New coaching staff as well, so hopefully their offense can kind of tick over a little bit more and be a bit more in depth in terms of maybe some more back screens, some more pick and roll action, some more off ball movement, stuff like that they didn't have last year. So I hope that's the case. Victor Oladipo has another period of time to get back to his old self. We don't know if he is, but there's a chance, and if he is, then that improves him so much. I really, really like their starting five. In terms of key additions, they haven't added much, but they haven't lost much. So they're kind of a really consistent team. Their starting five could look something like Brogdon, Oladipo, TJ Warren, Sabonis, Miles Turner. That's just a very good starting five for me. They won't lose many games against the worst teams that they'll play in the East. They'll sweep a lot of games against those lesser teams and maybe lose games to the teams that've got the best stars in the conference. But yeah, I've left the Pacers in 7, even though I tried to change them about 10 times.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's a sound pick.
Who's your 7?
Gone with the Raptors in 7. Same reasons as you. I think they've lost some pieces in the big department with Gasol and Ibaka going. As I said, I'm really high on Bainesy. I think he's going to be a great addition for them. He'll essentially fill that centre position quite well, and they'll probably move Siakam to that power forward more with Anunoby in the small forward. The coaching again is huge factor, and I think Van Vliet will probably start over Lowry now. Lowry will start coming off the bench. I like the roster. I like the coaching. I like the organisation. I just, unless Siakam really takes a big leap forward, can't see them being electrifying as a team going forward.
No, I agree. I think they'll be a very, very strong defensive team again, especially with Baines in there at starting centre. Very hard-working, good defender, isn't he? Good rebounder as well. Some of Siakam in that sense, in terms of can rebound well on both ends. So yeah, I agree. I think they'll be more of a defensive team. And they'll be looking at Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby, won't they, to kind of pick up their scoring, I think, and kind of take over the team in the offensive end rather than Kyle Lowry having to do it all.
Yeah.
Not that he does it all, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Baines reminds me of the centre they traded away for Gasol, who plays for the Grizz now. What's his name?
Valanciunas.
Yeah, Valanciunas. He's very Valanciunas-like.
Your boy.
Just does all the dirty stuff, just gets involved. He's good at what he does. He's defensively really good. And so I think it's kind of a nice little throwback almost to that roster.
Yeah, I would agree. Say your dirty stuff, though, for the late night edition pod, please, not the Eastern Conference. Eastern Conference preview pod. Cool, let's move on then to our last team that would normally make the playoffs, but there's going to be a play-in tournament. Full details not revealed yet, but 7 to 10 is going to be some sort of play-in tournament. So the 8 seed, for me, I've gone with your Atlanta Hawks. I wrote down similar stuff to you did. Amazing free agency, amazing draft. Someone you didn't mention in yours was Okongwu, who they got in the draft. Very good defensive player. Him and Clint Capella will kind of work well as a 1-2 punch in that area. He's a bit small. It's smaller than Clint, but they'll probably try and play him at the 5, you'd think. He's very defensive minded as well, so you kind of don't lose that defensive effort when Clint Capella needs a rest. Other key additions, I put Bogdanovic, Gallinari, and I actually wrote down Clint Capella as well because he hasn't officially played a game for them yet.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it is a new signing by definition. So yeah, really good additions. They're still going to be very bad defensively. I know Rondo's also an addition, but I'm not going to put him as a key addition because I hate him. They could still be very bad defensively, which is a little bit of a worry. Trae Young's got the worst defensive numbers of any player ever in the history of the NBA since they've been tracking it. Bogdanovic is a willing defender, but still not a great defender. If they start, they'll probably start Gallo at the 3, I would guess. Also a willing defender, not a great defender. John Collins, a willing defender, not a great defender. Clint Capella, very, very good defender. So I still think they're going to struggle on the defensive end. And in terms of last year, they finished 14th in the standings with 20 wins. So for them to go 14-4, 10-place jump would be the biggest in NBA history. So I am leaving them in at number 8. A nice 6-spot gap. They're going to be in the play-in tournament. And they are the sort of team that will either storm through a play-in tournament with high scoring, or they'll struggle at the end of games defensively. But yeah, they're an exciting team for the future. And I think when we do our Eastern Conference preview in a year's time, I think they could be a top four seed in the East. So yeah, that's my 8 seed.
Nice. My 8th seed, the Wizards.
Oh, Pacers are gone. And
Pacers out. I think for me, I was looking at the last season's record, right? The Wizards came 9th, 10th?
They were 9th, 25 wins, 8 games back from the playoffs.
Right, so
pretty close.
That was with Beal basically on his own. The amount of injuries that team had last season was phenomenal. Like you couldn't have predicted it. You had like Hachimura started playing really well and then was out for ages, and then Beal was coming and going a bit as well. They have really, really struggled last season with the injury, and they still managed to go 25 and 47 and come 10th. But like we said, we think that sort of 5th and maybe 9th spot is going to be really tight. They've added Westbrook, which, although, we know I've got mixed feelings about Westbrook. When he sticks to what he's good at, I think he's phenomenal. When he tries to do too much, he's crap. So, and I hope Bradley Beal will sort of keep him in check. And I like their signing of, like re-signing of Bertans. I think he's, again, some shooting, which they need around Westbrook. I think they've got real potential this season. Again, it's only the 8th seed. I don't think they're going to change the whole dynamic of this Eastern Conference. I think they'll probably get bounced in the first round if they do get the 8th seed. But I just like the direction they're going in. They've signed Robin Lopez as well, who will be good for some spot minutes in the center position defensively. So, I like the Wizards in the 8th and bouncing the Pacers out of the playoffs.
Nice. So I've got the Wizards in 9th. So they're going to be in the play-in tournament to get the 8th seed. They are the sort of team, kind of echoing what you said there, that I could see beating the Hawks, for example, just because of how good Beal and Westbrook are in a one-off game, or if it's 2 games for a play-in. Because we all know what Westbrook can do. He can just go off. And Beal took a huge leap. I think people kind of don't really think about it as much because the team weren't great and kind of aren't that like national recognized TV team in terms of games that they play. And Beal is so good that he can win you any game. So I've kind of left them at 9, but like I said, they'll still get a chance to get into the playoffs of the new play-in tournament. Key additions, I put Westbrook, like you said, Robin Lopez, like you said. They've kept Bertans, Troy Brown, 2 players that I quite like. They've added, obviously, Westbrook instead of John Wall, but John Wall didn't even play last year, so they're adding a point guard over basically nobody because they really struggled at the point guard position.
Adding Westbrook in himself, I think, is an additional 7 to 10 wins.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. And they added Denny Advia, who in the draft, who's someone that we spoke about loads that I loved. He's probably one of the most NBA ready players in this whole draft. He'll be one of their 7 to 9 man rotation straight away. He'll add stuff to the team. He'll be a really good passer. He can kind of play with Beal really well and Westbrook's off the floor. So they can kind of both carry the ball. Denny doing it from the forward position. And I just really like Denny, so I think he's going to be a key addition to them. So I've left them in 9, and I would not be shocked if they won the play-in tournament with the Pacers, Hawks themselves, and one more team that I'll talk about in a minute. So yeah, I've left the Wizards in at 9.
Nice. My 9th seed is that Pacers team. I think a disgruntled Victor Oladipo. I mean, they've got good players, solid players, but I don't know if they can sort of repeat almost what they did last season without changing it up a little bit. I just find it difficult to sort of get behind them at the moment. I think they're a good team. Like I said, I think these spots here, these bottom kind of 3 are almost interchangeable between them and the Wizards and stuff. So, but I think for me, it's just Wizards. I think had more of an edge than the Pacers. That's literally all it is.
Yeah, well, Bradley Beal is the best player by far of the two teams, isn't he? So probably even if Oladipo got back to his good self, I'd still take current Bradley Beal. So yeah, it'd be interesting if they do finish in the 7 to 10 seed and they're in a play-in tournament. They'll be a hard team to beat, I'd say, the Pacers, just because of the depth they've got. But they'll need someone to score. And when in the bubble, when it was TJ Warren randomly scoring 50 points, they look like a really good team.
Yeah.
But when he doesn't, which he doesn't do often, because he's not James Harden. Like, it's no disrespect, but that's when they can struggle. So yeah, I agree. I think they're going to be fighting for their lives down there in that 7 to 9 range. Let's move on to 10 then, the last team that can make the play-in tournament. I did struggle with this, actually. There's some teams we both kind of spoke about off air that we knew would be down the bottom of the Eastern Conference ranks. But the 10 spot for me was really, really hard, including the Wizards. So I've gone with the Magic, kind of because I perform with them every year. I always think they're going to be quite an average team, and they finish in the 8th seed. So I don't see them finishing much lower than 10 or 11 when I look at the list. So I've stuck them in at 10. They've added Okeke, who they got in last year's draft, but he had an ACL injury, so he comes back this year. He's a really good player, really good defender. Cole Anthony as well, a point guard that can play for them. Good minutes. He'll be a key addition. He'll actually play as well. And they haven't lost anyone. They've been the same team for years. I always feel like their players are mentioned in trades, but nobody ever leaves.
No.
They keep the same players. And if we're praising other teams for having good consistency and not having to kind of wait a month to get going, I think the Magic could start quite well in the first 6 weeks once other teams get acclimatized. So I've gone with the Magic at 10, just for consistency. So yeah, what about you? Who's your 10 seed?
From here to 15, I think I found harder to place than I did any of the top ones. Although I had some movement running up, I think I did struggle with this as well. But because of hopefully their players developing and front office and coaching changes will be a massive benefit to them, I've put the Chicago Bulls in 10.
Oh no! I knew when you said that. That's where you were going with it.
Yeah,
I knew it.
I love Orlando.
God.
I love the Orlando Magic. I love the way they play. I'm a big
Clearly not.
But I just feel like if they can sort themselves out, the Bulls are potentially more talented across the roster. They just need to sort themselves out. And
they need to trade Zach LaVine.
On this prediction, I'm hoping the coaching and the front office changes does that for them, and they take a step forward in the right direction. Because it'd be nice to see Chicago as a more prominent team again in the NBA.
Coaching's probably their main change. Like, as in, like, I can't tell you how bad I think the coaching was last year.
It was dreadful.
Billy Donovan's a good coach, so I think that's the key addition, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. So I reckon that gets them enough wins to slide them into that 10th spot.
Yeah, I'm friends. Shout out to Nad, who's a Bulls fan, in a group chat, and we were talking. Everyone was like, "Oh, the Bulls haven't signed anyone." I said they got no cap space, and someone replied and said, "What do you mean they got no cap space? They've got no players. They must have cap space." And I was like, "No, let me read you this: Otto Porter, 29 million; Zach LaVine, 20 million; Thaddeus Young, 14 million; Thomas Saransky, 10 million; Christian Felicio, 8 million." And then you've got all your rookies that are on 7, 8, 6, 5 because they always have a good top 10 pick. And they were like, "Oh, right." So they spend a lot of money on average players, but the East has a lot of bad teams. So I agree. I think they're not going to be miles off. I'm not quite as high. Zach LaVine for me is I really struggle with Zach LaVine, and the rumors are mad trading.
I think I think he's got a lot of potential, and he's a good player. I just think I think his biggest problem is he thinks too much of himself.
Yeah, and the coach could help him with that.
And at the moment, he kind of has every right to on that team because he has been the best player on that team. And I think
he's the scorer as well, isn't he?
That will change with Lauri Markkanen being used and utilised more.
Yeah, I agree.
I love Lauri Markkanen. He is the best player on that team, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. He's the best player. I've already written down who I think you're going to put at number 11 now, so we'll see if I'm right in a minute. My 11 seed, not the Bulls still. I've gone with the Hornets. Gordon Hayward is still a very good player. So key additions wise, LaMelo Ball and Gordon Hayward. They've signed a couple of other players, especially in the draft, but I think those are the main guys. They've improved their starting 5/6 unit. Their young players should grow again in terms of Devontae Graham and PJ Washington. And again, if they don't grow those players, I'd be worried. But their coaching staff has really shown that they can progress people from the draft or from the G League. That's really, really what they're good at. And you have to be good at that if you're a Hornets team, because you don't often sign free agents. This year, they did also sign a free agent. And I think Hayward will be able to win them 5 to 10 games. He scores 20 points a night when he played for Boston in a smaller role. He scored 30 points a night just before he got his second injury last season when he hurt his hand. He was averaging 29 points a game for a 5-game spell. And I think that he's got that in him. And I think he'll be asked to do less. And the Hornets can kind of surround him with more players that don't require the ball as much on offense. And if LaMelo Ball is as good as he could be, then they could be amazing. If he has a bad rookie season, they could be more like 13th, 14th team. But I've stuck them in at 11 over your Bulls team. But yeah, they're an 11 for me. What about you?
11, I've gone Orlando.
Yes, I was right. I put Magic, brackets, Vujicic in capital letters.
Yeah, he's so underrated. Personally, I think he's great. Glad he's got.
Cavs should trade for him, mate. Get another big in there, you know.
Yeah, get another big on the roster. I'm glad he's made at least one All-Star appearance, and Orlando are just sort of consistent, aren't they? Don't make any changes.
They're good.
Come sort of bottom run of the playoffs, maybe have a few sort of upset games throughout the season, and I think they're bringing on all their players really, really well. I think they're developing them. They haven't got quite enough to push past some of these other teams, I think, this season. So that's why
could this be the year they finally lose some of those players and kind of actually get a bit of freshness in the roster? We'll have to see.
Yeah, that's it. It's a bit stale.
Yeah, it is a little bit stale.
But they're a limbo team, aren't they? They're doing well enough to make the bottom run of the playoffs, but never well enough to make it
push forward,
but never bad enough to get a good draft pick. And it's kind of, they need to make a decision sooner or later, which is, do we blow it up and start fresh, or do we somehow make a push for this, try and get a superstar or form some sort of crazy trade and go for it. So
similar to what the Hornets have done with the random Hayward move, just go for something a bit out there, maybe.
Just try it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think they are very much a team in limbo. Let's go on to the 12 seed then. We've already discussed them. The Chicago Bulls. They're still rebuilding. Still a lot of young players. There's been a lot of change this season, coaching wise. So they'll have to learn the system, but eventually they'll improve as the season goes on. I think once they kind of get through that initial period of all the changes, coaching wise, and a couple of new young players, I think they'll then really grow into their own and have a stronger second half of the season, maybe than the first half. Key addition wise, I put Patrick Williams. That's pretty much all they did. Good draft pick. Interesting to see where he plays though, because of Markkanen and Carter Jr. I don't think he'll play. It's a bit of a worry if you're picking someone at 4 who doesn't start, when you're a team that is rebuilding. Don't quite know what that means. I mean, you've probably got a bit of a logjam in certain positions rather than drafting for fit. But maybe they'll try and turn Patrick Williams into a small forward. I'm a little bit worried about Zach LaVine. I put them higher than the 3 teams below them because someone like Zach LaVine can score 30 in a few games and win you games against the poor teams. I think they're very talented. Their coach is very, very good for a team that's young. I'm just a little bit worried about them, and I'm a little bit less higher than LaVine on them most. So I've left them in the 12 seed. And then for me, the 10 to 12 is quite tight. Like we were talking about, 9 to 6 is quite tight. 10 to 12 is quite tight. And then the bottom 3 are quite clear, the bottom 3 for me. So yeah. Who have you got in 12?
Charlotte.
Nice, yeah.
I like the moves they've made this offseason. They've done better than I thought they were going to. I think signing Hayward for them is brilliant. I'm a little bit worried about... I love Hayward as a player. I think he is great and he's consistent. But on that Celtics team, he probably had the 3rd best defender on the opposition team against him, which probably allowed him to score those points a bit more freely and a bit more easily. So I'm interested to see how he will now cope being guarded by the best defender on the opposition team. Yeah. Whether he can keep that keep those points ticking over in that 20 to 30 margin.
Yeah.
But I just can never trust the rest of this team. It's just such a poor organisation that I can't get more excited about the changes they've made and the team they put together. I just have a real block against them. And it's through no fault of the players. I think the roster is fairly good. I just think the management is so poor that they never succeed. So, Hornets for me.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, they're part of that group that I was talking about, just below the worst in the East. Let's move on to the worst in the East. Then there's 3 clear teams. We probably will have a different order. Maybe we'll see. So 13th, I've gone with your Cleveland Cavaliers. Reasons, again, I put still rebuilding. Lots of players that potentially might get traded. They might want to leave. You've got players like Drummond and Love there. 2 point guards, I don't know what you're doing with. You've either got to pick one, or you're going to turn one into a 2 guard and play them together, and that's fine. Then you should just play them together the whole season and try it for 70 games rather than changing it every 10 games. That would be my advice. I would pick which one's starting and which one's going off the bench, or just play them together and do it for a whole year. And if it doesn't work, you get a good pick next year and you can lose one of the players after. They added Isaac Okoro, who will really, really, really improve their defense. He'll guard the best player on the other team probably every night, which helps them on the defensive end. It will kind of let Kevin Love do a little bit more offensively if he stays. And I put them at 13. I just think they're a little bit better than the 2 teams below them, mainly because of Kevin Love. I think Drummond, as much as I don't love him as a player, I think he'll get a load of rebounds and a load of blocks in games that will help them win a few more than maybe the 2 teams below them. But if they trade Kevin Love in the first 6 weeks of the season, then they've got a great chance of having the worst record in the league. But yeah, 13th for me. So yeah, best of the worst. Who's your 13th team?
I have joined you on that.
Hey, go on the Cavs.
I think it's just, again, slightly limbo team, aren't they? Half of the team's rebuilding, half the team's ready to be traded. They're 5 years' time, you'd hope that they'll be top half of the Eastern Conference with the moves that they're making and the players they're bringing on. But they've gone from a sort of big, heavy team to a guard-heavy team at the moment. So I'm the same as you. It'd be interesting to see how they manage those roster moves and the minutes. They've re-signed Dellavedova on a vet minimum.
Who do you prefer, Garland or Sexton, out of interest?
To be honest,
not sure yet.
At this moment in time, it's tip for tat. Yeah, they each have a good night and a bad night. I think I like
JaVale McGee as well.
Yeah, they signed JaVale McGee as the backup centre behind Drummond, which I do really like. Because again, like you said, it means Kevin Love can become that more offensive player with Drummond and McGee as that defensive presence in sort of combination with Okoro. So I like where they're going. They're not there yet. That's their issue. So up the Cavs.
Up the Cavs. Yeah, and a previous guest of the show, Joe Hulbert, absolutely loves Kevin Porter Jr., who is the guard on this team, shooting guard. He thinks he's going to be an all-star. He's just to sort himself off the field, off the court. He's had a few more issues again this off-season, but if he can get himself into the team, then he could really kick you guys on. But not sure where that one's going to lead. So yeah, next has gone to the 14th seed then. I am going with the Detroit Pistons.
I've matched you.
My key addition. Yeah. Nice. I put key additions every centre. Lol. Plumlee, worst deal. They obviously signed Okafor. They drafted a centre whose name escapes you now. Isaiah Stewart. I just don't know what they're doing. And then in the reasons, I put 14th. I put still rebuilding, weak roster, but WTF they doing? So I don't know what they're doing. They're very badly run. We spoke about the Hornets. They've had a little bit of a history of some bad decision making in the last 5 years. I think the Pistons are showing that now. They got a new GM, and I just think he made good moves and bad moves. Killian Hayes is a great pickup, and if he's as good as he can be, that's a great guard for the Pistons' future. But I think the rest of the roster, apart from him and probably Grant, who's overpaid, is really poor. I don't know what team they're going to roll out. If I'm completely honest, if you look at the projected, I believe the projected starting five looks something like Derek Rose, Dillian Wright, who just came from the Mavs. Small forward Mihailovic, who I can't even say, Blake Griffin and Gio Okafor. It's just a weak roster, weak bench, and Blake Griffin could get traded. So I'll put them in at 14. Similar, like I said, just like you. But is there anything else you want to add? Any thoughts on the Pistons?
Yeah, I think both Derek Rose and Griffin will go, and
that makes sense.
They'll have nothing.
I think it's probably better for them to do that, to lose all these games, and get a good pick, and don't draft another centre.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't draft another centre.
I think they're going to be gunning for that number one pick.
Yeah, and this year, the new last 2 years, the draft lottery is a bit different as well. You only need to be one of the worst 4 or 5 teams, and you've got a great chance of getting the 1 seed.
Yeah,
and I think they'll be right up there. Cool. Well, right down there, I should say. 15th then. There's only one team left to talk about. Yeah, the New York Knickerbockers. In the reasons, I put the Knicks gonna Knicks. They're gonna lose. I just hate the roster.
Well, they are a city that doesn't sleep. You know?
They are a city that never sleeps and never wins. I don't like the roster. I don't think I like the coach as much as others as well, which is something we spoke about before. Key additions, there's been quite a few. I won't mention many, but Obi Toppin in the draft, still worried about him. Austin Rivers on a 3-year deal, Nerlens Noel on a 1-year. More centres to kind of block Obi Toppin's play at power forward. I just think it's strange. I just don't know. I don't know what to say. I just think that they are definitely gunning for one more bad year before next year's free agency class, where they have the most money for the next 2 seasons out of any team.
Yeah.
And next year they have the most money, I believe, out of any team ever, bar one in history. I can't remember who that was. It might be the Hawks from 2 years ago. But yeah, they have the most money ever, bar one team. So they are gunning for next year. So they want to lose one more year, get another load of picks. But yeah, they're just bad for me. Any thoughts?
Not really. They're just a bit of a joke of a biggest franchise in the league that is just consistently terrible. Not
even giving players a chance to develop. That's the problem with some of the signings they make.
Yeah,
RJ
why
Barrett
have they signed Austin Rivers? What's the benefit in that? For me, that's sort of such a weird signing on both parts. Like Austin Rivers could realistically be signing for a championship contending team and contribute. Why has he gone to the Knicks, and why do the Knicks want him?
Apparently he wants to help change the culture, help attract free agents next year, help show they can win games, all this stuff. But I don't really know whether it's really just wanted the 3 years worth of money, and then hopefully they cut him after 1 year and he gets to go to a contender for an extra 10 mil. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
maybe.
Weird team. I think they're probably the worst or second worst roster, aren't they, in the whole of the league? We're not going to talk about the West today, but they're right up there for me. And they probably improved a little bit on last year's team, but that does not say a lot.
No.
They had 21 wins last year, and the Pistons were below them, the Hawks below them, who aren't going to be below them, and your Cavs. I think it'll be between the same 3 again, Knicks, Pistons, and Cavs. And I just think that the Knicks roster setup and that strange coaching decision with him kind of badgering young players quite a lot, I just think that'll lead to a little bit of a disaster year. So yeah, worst record, but maybe they'll get the first round pick and pick Cade Cunningham. We'll have to see. But yeah, that is our full Eastern Conference preview, mate. A few differences, a few similar teams, but most of all, I think we've got like blocks of teams, apart from maybe the Hawks higher for you, but the rest is kind of quite similar in terms of like blocks of 5 or 6.
Yeah, like I said, it's that 5th to 10th. Well, 5th even further, can't you? That they're so similar and interchangeable in a way that we were going to have a couple of blocks here and there. So I'm glad I put in a couple of surprise mentions here and there just to keep it ticking over. Yeah,
and I like the Celtics at the 1 seed as an option. That's a cool pick, I think, that people will get behind.
Yeah, I'm real high on them this season.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll have to see.
Shout out to Rich.
Rich will be loving that. And Elliot from the Hoopin' and Loopin' store will definitely like the fact we've got the Nets in the top 4 as well. So that's good. The plan is then next podcast we will do the same for the West. we originally thought the West was going to be a lot harder, but as we sat down and did the East, that was also quite hard. So we'll have to see what the West looks like. But yeah, thanks again for joining us. Look out for the West pod next, and then our betting preview on the podcast after.
Yeah, exciting stuff to come. I'm literally sat here looking at my West lineup and thinking, I think I want to change all of it. Like, it's mad.
Yeah, it's a lot of interchange, I think, especially in the middle tiers.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to see what that looks like. And thanks again for joining us. Shout us out on Twitter at _Hardwood Hoops as always. Ben's putting a lot of pictures and a lot of polls up, so get involved with those.
Yeah.
And we will speak to you next time.
Speak to you soon.